go to the office. Have them call 911. Anushka, you need to get the AED, please.
Sudden cardiac arrest can strike anyone of any age, anywhere at any time. 350,000 people in this country will be the innocent and often unknowing victims of sudden cardiac arrest this year. Will you, or someone you love, be one of the victims?
Hi, this is Mrs. Hack from Audubon Middle School, 3300 South 39th Street. We have a student down in the gym class.
Knowing how to recognize and respond quickly in a cardiac emergency is crucial in helping to give victims of sudden cardiac arrest the best chance of survival.
Exactly as shown in the picture. Press firmly to patient's bare skin. Shock advised. Stay clear of patient. Press the flashing orange button now. Shock delivered.
Xavier, can you hear me? You're gonna be okay here. He had a cardiac arrest. I gave him shock kit.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn Bartell. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner at Duke University Medical Center, specializing in pediatric cardiology. Scenes like the one you just saw are all too common in my profession. Student athletes collapsing in the middle of a game, or students collapsing during gym class. They may or may not have been as lucky as the child that was in this video. They may or may not have an AED in their school to assist with resuscitation. I'm here today to talk to you about placing AEDs in all our public schools in North Carolina. 1 person every 2 minutes dies in the United States from sudden cardiac arrest. 1 young athlete dies every 3 days in the United States from an unrecognized cardiovascular disorder, despite adequate pre-participation sports physicals. Sudden cardiac arrest kills more people each year than AIDS, breast, colon, and prostate cancer, assault with firearms, and motor vehicle accidents combined. Early defibrillation with an automated external defibrillator, or an AED, is the key to survival for these victims. Sudden cardiac arrest is caused by a lethal heart arrhythmia called ventricular fibrillation, which causes an ineffective quivering of the heart muscle, which can only be treated with defibrillation. In cases such as these, CPR is helpful, but early defibrillation is the key to success. As you saw in the beginning of this video, AEDs are extremely easy to use. They are compact, lightweight devices designed for the community user. Once the lid is opened, clear, simple voice commands and visual prompts guide the user through instruction. Many people may be wondering, isn't it enough to have emergency medical services available by 911? Won't it be enough if paramedics arrive and resuscitate the victim? It is known that survival decreases by 7% for every minute that defibrillation is delayed. This can lead to victims not surviving if defibrillation is delayed upwards of 8 minutes. In typical communities like those found in our surrounding communities, the response time for emergency medical providers is 7 to 8 minutes. With this response time, most of our victims of sudden cardiac arrest will not survive. By placing AEDs in our schools, we can dramatically improve the survival for these victims by providing early access to AEDs. Given the response time of our local emergency medical services, it would seem appropriate to be placing AEDs in our public schools. This follows along with the American Heart Association Emergency Medical Response Plan developed in 2004. This outlines guidelines for schools in order to place AEDs properly in these schools. If there is an attendee of the school, adult or child, who is at high risk, if the call to shock interval for emergency medical services is greater than 5 minutes, or if there has been an episode of sudden cardiac death in that school in the last 5 years, the American Heart Association recommends placing an AED in those schools. Using these guidelines, nearly every school in North Carolina should require an AED. If groups like the American Heart Association are giving mounting evidence for the placement of AEDs in our public schools, let's take a moment to look at the legislation that is also in place to support this measure. The Josh Miller Hearts Act is an act that is currently on the floor of the Senate awaiting approval, and this will provide matching funding for schools for the placement of AEDs in all our public schools. This follows the Project Adam Act that has been on the floor of the Senate since 2006 and also supports the placement of AEDs in our public schools. Both of these bills are awaiting passing by the Senate and are awaiting funding by the next budget. If the placement of AEDs in public schools is a measure supported by the American Heart Association and by pending legislation, what is holding us back? Funding and a lack of an organized effort are two issues that rise to the forefront. AEDs cost no more than $1,000 per device, and AED training is already supplied in the budget for the North Carolina School Nurses Association. Staff members can be trained through funds available in that budget, and placing an AED is a one-time cost for schools with a slight charge for ongoing maintenance. Creative ideas for funding can come from PTA fundraisers, Rotary donations, community fundraisers, parent donations, or even adding $1 to the long list of school supplies every parent receives at the beginning of the year. At any one time, 20% of our nation's population can be found on the grounds of a public school system. Let's get creative. Let's take action. Let's place AEDs in our public schools in North Carolina. Let's get on the phone and call our principals. Let's go to the school board meetings and advocate for the placement of these all-important medical devices in our schools. It is worth $1. It is worth a PTA fundraiser to protect the lives of our children and the staff at our school systems by placing AEDs in our schools. Is your child protected? Does your school have an AED? These are the questions you need to be asking yourselves as you send your child off on the school bus tomorrow.